So welcome again, everyone. My name is Susan Holmes, and we're so pleased you could join us this evening. Sonia Greenwald and I are very excited to be leading this presentation today. So we've got a really ambitious topic to cover in the next 90 minutes, and we hope that the information that we share will lead to further conversation about effective planning options that might work best for you. So I've been on the plan giving team here at the U for 15 years and in a lead role for the last 8. And having done this work for my entire 30-plus year career, it's a real joy and honor to help donors create meaningful charitable gift plans. Sonia Greenwald joined UMF last spring as Director of Legal Affairs after serving as an estate planning attorney in private practice, and previously as a gift planning development professional with several area nonprofits. Sonia is going to cover the estate planning parts of our content today, and I'll focus on the gift options. So my team works closely with our colleagues who represent the various programs, colleges, and campuses at the U. We serve as a resource to donors and their advisors for charitable gift planning, often as a part of an estate plan or a tax-wise giving strategy. The information we'll be sharing tonight is based on general rules. We think it's very important for you to consult with your own advisors to decide which options are best for you. So here's the topics we're going to discuss this evening. We'll begin with information that applies to every estate plan, regardless of the size of your estate or your age. For those of you who've worked on your plan, some of this will be review, but we'll include a few suggestions for how you might want to personalize your plan. It's no secret that estate planning documents are created from forms, but that doesn't mean that all plans should look alike. We'll provide a brief update on the taxes that impact giving strategies, and our last segment covers effective gift strategies and why donors may choose them, and an overview of the options for donors to direct their support to the university. Again, welcome, and I'll invite Sonia Greenwald to the podium.
Right. Thank you, Susan, and thank you so much for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity. So jumping right in, the estate plan. From a simple perspective, it's a plan for managing and giving away your assets. However, at its best, it can be much more than that. I like the way that Chris Farrell from NPR has described it. It's about deciding how to live your life, figuring out what you value, and putting your money behind your goals and your beliefs. Part of a lifelong endeavor to create a good life, and it evolves as our goals change. So it's true that many of us do put off estate planning. In fact, a recent survey suggests that possibly only 50% of those over 50 even have a plan. And it's really no wonder. It can be very overwhelming, the amount of information needed, as well as the focus on death and taxes. However, if you think of it as a reflective process, a way to share your goals and values, it can in fact be very rewarding. This slide lists a link to a toolkit on our website that may help you in planning. This toolkit includes steps to begin the process, as well as an inventory to gather the information you will need. There are also questions that will encourage you to think about what you want to accomplish with your plan. And as for those with an estate plan, these questions can also be helpful if you're wishing to update those plans and make sure that it's consistent with your goals. If you'd like us to print off this toolkit or any other of the websites that we refer to today in today's presentation, just let us know. We'll print those off and mail those to you. So today we're going to spend a bulk of our time discussing gift strategies. But before we do, I think it would be helpful to identify goals that are shared by most everyone. The first goal, one which many would consider maybe the most important, what do you want to accomplish with your gifts? Which individuals and organizations do you want to benefit, and for what purpose? For younger beneficiaries, should gifts be distributed immediately or held in trust? And what are the appropriate purposes and ages for those trust distributions? I'm going to share an example of how focusing on gift purpose can help make these important decisions. So we recently worked with 2 donors that had always intended on benefiting their 2 children equally. Both children were financially stable. Their son had children, their daughter did not. Like many of us, education was very important to them. So focusing on what they wanted to accomplish helped them decide to set aside funds in trust for their grandchildren's education. So while their children may not receive equally, they're focusing on the purpose of their gift and allowing that plan to align with their goals and their values. The second goal, deciding who to designate to manage the plan. Here we have listed the various roles that most of you are familiar with. We have personal representative, which is also referred to as executor, trustee, power of attorney, healthcare agent. This can be a family member who fills this role, and for those without the appropriate family members, there are companies that will serve as personal representative and trustee from both large and smaller institutions. For other ideas, you can always ask your advisor, your family members, your close friends, and we also have a list of recommendations that based on what others have shared with us. Reducing taxes and expenses is a third common goal, and the topic that sometimes dominates the estate planning discussion. And while it is important, it should not be the primary driver of all decisions. Ross Levin, a foundation board member, writes about financial matters, and he has said this: "The most important thing you can do with your money is to align its use with your purpose. Most money discussions are about how, but purpose is about why." I think the tax discussion as the how, and it's important not to cut short the purpose, the why. So this slide lists what we call the core estate plan, meaning documents everyone should consider regardless of size of estate or age. I'll be sharing more about the first 3 items on this list as we go along. However, I want to first focus on that last box on the slide, providing ways that you can supplement and personalize your plan. A statement of values is often referred to as an ethical will. This does not need to be a formal document. It can actually be a format of a letter, and it can even have a little humor depending on your personality. But it can't change or be inconsistent with your estate plan documents. It's just simply a way to share your values and your experiences. You can also include practical information, such as location of your documents, recommendations for advisors, investment guidance, other elements that you may want to include. I worked with one couple who had put all this information into one 3-ring binder and set it aside for their personal representative, just making that information all that more accessible. These days, it's also important to ensure that someone has access to your passwords. There are programs out there that will allow you to securely share, but it could also be something as simple as a confidential document. So the first step in estate planning process is typically discussing and distinguishing between the will and the revocable trust. Many of you are likely familiar with the will. It allows you to select who's going to manage your estate and how it will be distributed. It does, however, require a court probate process to administer the estate. And because of this, many people will choose to move forward with the revocable trust. So assuming you transfer your assets to the trust during your life, the trust provisions will determine what happens to those assets without a court probate. You will still have a will to administer any of the assets you may have missed, but it will be much shorter and simpler. And as the name suggests, this type of trust can be changed at any time. Revocable trusts are often referred to as a gift to your heirs. Though establishing a trust may take a bit more time and cost up front, while you're transferring the assets, the estate administration is typically simpler and less costly. Other benefits of the revocable trusts are that they are a good way to manage assets in the event of incapacity, and they're private. So we hear of many of the rich and famous using trusts for purposes of privacy. Lastly, for any of you that own property in more than one state, the transfer of property to a revocable trust avoids a separate probate proceeding in that state. Another part of the core plan is the use of beneficiary designations. This is increasingly important part of any plan because of the insignificant growth in retirement assets. So we're talking about our IRAs, our 401ks, our 403bs. A benefit is that these designations can be easily changed. You simply request the forms from your plan administrator or the life insurance company. But because these changes can be done by the individual owners of the account, you want to be sure to confirm and share your designations with your advisor to ensure that it does fit with the rest of your plan. It's important to know that these accounts will pass according to the beneficiary designations, not under the terms of your will or your trust. As Susan will explain in just a bit, there are advantages to directing retirement assets to charity and leave other assets to family and friends. Lastly, it's important to periodically review any accounts with beneficiary designations to look at the value of the account and how the designations have been made to ensure that they still align with your goals. Another tool in the estate plan is the use of direct transfers. So these can be used with many types of assets, such as bank accounts, investment accounts. You can also transfer real estate by direct transfer. How does this work? Assets pass according to an agreement with the bank or investment company, or in the case of real estate, a deed rather than through a will or trust. With fewer estates subject to estate tax, many more people are using beneficiary designations and direct transfers to simplify their plan and avoid probate. However, just keep in mind, just as with a revocable trust, it's still best to have a will to transfer any assets that you might have missed. Power of attorney and healthcare directives. These are important for incapacity planning as they allow you to name someone who will be managing your finances or making healthcare decisions in the event that you're unable to do so. On the slide here, we have the website for the Attorney General, and they have these documents available to print along with instructions. This site also has a handbook with information about wills, trusts, the probate process, as well as a great glossary of terms. And it's incredibly detailed, and we only have a limited time here today, so I do encourage you to take a look at this website if you're looking for some additional information. So whether your plan includes a will, a trust, beneficiary designations, direct transfers, or some combination of it all, it's important to have one. Without it, state law is going to determine who will receive your assets and who will manage the estate. And this may not be what you want, and it will certainly not be the most tax or cost efficient. You may have heard stories of celebrities in recent years who didn't have an estate plan, such as Aretha Franklin or our very own Prince. This can lead to costly disputes, but most important, it didn't allow them to choose which individuals and organizations that their plan was going to support. So once you've completed your plan, you do need to congratulate yourself because it's a big accomplishment. But because, as Chris Farrell has said, it's a lifelong endeavor, you do need to periodically review your plan, especially if there are changes to your family, your assets, or there are tax law changes. And sometimes that uncertainty about the future can be a barrier to beginning an estate plan, but just know that you could always make changes and update your plan to reflect any of those changes in life. It's a good idea to review your beneficiary designations to be sure they still accomplish your goals. And if you do include charitable designations, it's good to reach out to the charity just to be sure that you have the correct name and that the charity understands your designation and is able to use the gift as you directed. So not long ago, we received an estate gift directing proceeds to a university program using an acronym. And if you know anything about the university, we love our acronyms. We have many of them, but the acronym in this will provision did not coincide with one here at the university. So you do want to make sure that you confirm that you have the correct designation. So we'll be talking a little bit about tax provisions in just a moment, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. On the direct transfer, does that avoid capital gain tax on real estate?
You would avoid, well, it would, if, with the direct transfer, you would be able to have a stepped up basis if, once you've passed on real estate. So we could certainly, if you would like, we could certainly chat a little bit about that if you have some concerns about taxation on real estate, maybe during afterwards here. Yeah.
In regards to the designation at the University of Minnesota, is that included in this packet here? Because part of my trust is to the U in 3 different areas, and I would like to know who I should contact in regards to making sure that the trust aligns with what you just said.
Well, that is a perfect question because that allows me to have the opportunity to say that, yes, thank you, first of all, for including all those designations. But you can certainly contact, we have the staff here for the plan giving team, and we'd be happy to ensure that those designations are correct. So we'll make sure that someone will connect with you afterwards on that. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I appreciate your having included the payment on transfer on death. That's because I know investment bankers are using that great frequency. But otherwise, you referred to setting aside funds in a trust for a child. And if one looks to an institution to serve as a trustee, do you have any idea what their charges are likely to be and how large a body of funds would be necessary in order to make it economical for an institution to serve as a trustee? Keeping in mind that the provisions of the trust would only, they might provide for the distribution of funds at age 25 and 30 or something like that, but accelerated distributions in the event of illness or health or a disability or education.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. Yeah, there are opportunities, there are instances in which the university will act as trustee. We do have various guidelines that we need to follow in terms of that, just because, as you pointed out, there's a lot of logistics and a lot of things that will go along to being appointed as trustee. So if that is something that you are wondering more about, we could certainly connect on that because it does fluctuate, especially depending on the situation. But thank you for bringing that up. All right. Well, I guess now we're going to go to the real fun part. We're going to talk about tax provisions. So the first of these taxes is gift and estate tax. Now this is different than income tax. This is going to apply to all gifts, meaning all transfers. Each person has a total lifetime exemption, which is the total amount cumulatively you can give during your life and through your estate before you would owe any gift or estate tax. With the tax law changes effective in 2018, the federal exemption is now at almost $13 million per person, and then for a married couple, almost $26 million. So, as you can imagine, 99.9% of estates under this law do not owe any federal estate tax. So this is a far cry from 2001, when the amount excluded was only $675,000 per person, and the estate tax rate was 55%. So there's no question that avoidance of estate tax 20 years ago drove a lot of planning decision and added complexity to many of the plans. Current law allows us it allows people with an opportunity to focus on other goals now. So there's a few exceptions that are carved out of the gift and estate tax, and by that I mean gifts that won't reduce your lifetime exemption. And one of those is the annual exclusion, and that's the amount you can pass each year without any tax implications. For 2023, the annual exclusion is $17,000 per person. So, provided the transfer does not exceed this amount, the transfer is not required to be reported on a gift tax return, and the person receiving the tax does not, or receiving the gift does not owe a tax. You can also make gifts to your spouse without reducing your lifetime exemption, although there may be estate tax owed at the second spouse's death. And lastly, all gifts to charity pass free of gift and estate tax. So you may be wondering, with the federal estate tax exemption so high, do we still have to worry about whether or not the gifts fall into one of the exceptions? And we do. There are some reasons for that. First, you do have to file a gift tax return if the gift does not fall into the exception. Also, Minnesota has an estate tax exemption amount, and that is $3 million per person. So everything you own is subject to estate tax. That includes your home, your retirement accounts, your investment assets. So more estates are subject to Minnesota estate tax. And while Minnesota does not have a gift tax, if one does pass away within 3 years of making a gift, that gift will be subject to a Minnesota estate tax unless it falls into one of the exceptions. And finally, the exemption amount may very well change again. If a gift falls into one of the exceptions, then it won't use any of your lifetime exemption, whatever that amount may be in the future. So there's an additional type of tax that's important to know also when making gifts, and that's capital gains tax. When an individual sells stock, real estate, or other assets that have increased in value, the person will owe a capital gain tax on the amount the asset increased in value over the cost basis, which is generally the purchase price. Capital gains can also cause additional types of taxes. For example, it can trigger something called net investment income tax. And it's also important to be aware of capital gains tax when you're making gifts during your lifetime. If you give a low basis asset to a loved one during your life, they will have the same cost basis as you, and depending on their income level, they will owe a capital gains tax if they were to sell that asset. So in a few moments, Susan's going to share some gift strategies for donors to avoid capital gains tax. So every year we're asked to provide updates on changes in tax laws that may impact giving strategies. And this year, Congress did pass the Secure Act 2.0 with a goal of promoting retirement savings. There's a few items to note on this. The required minimum distribution age has increased to age 73 and will increase again in 2033 to age 75. And beginning in 2024, the annual IRA qualified charitable distribution, also referred to as the QCD, currently is capped at $100,000, will be adjusted for inflation. In addition, those 70 and a half and older can make a one-time charitable distribution from their IRA not to exceed $50,000 to fund a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. We'll touch on this briefly when Susan again discusses our specific gift strategies. The other thing I want to point out is that unless a tax bill is passed between now and 2025, the act passed in 2017 will be going away. So this means that the estate tax exemption will return to the same exemption that we were at in 2017. And that's estimated to be about $7 million per person, depending on inflation. And we will also return to a lower standard deduction. And so coupled with the ability to claim more itemized deductions so that people will be able to benefit from those itemizing deductions. So 2025, although it sounded like worlds away when that act was enacted, it is quickly approaching. And lastly, with regards to proposed legislation, just this spring, a handful of senators, including our own Senator, Amy Klobuchar, introduced a bill that would restore the non-itemized charitable deduction and raise the cap to approximately $4,600 to individuals and double that for joint filers. So that just sort of skimmed the surface on some tax law, but happy to answer any additional questions that may have come up.
I just want to clarify on the gift and estate taxes slide that exceptions for the annual exclusion of $17,000 that apply to a charity transfer. The most it could be would be $17,000.
No, so in fact, actually, to charities, there's no exemption to that. You can pass any amount tax-free to charities.
Okay.
Thank you.
On that same point, but the transfers typically are to children or relatives? I mean, that's included in there?
So the 17,000 pertains to any individual. You can transfer up to that amount to one individual per year. And let me know if does that make sense? Great.
To get further clarification on that, let's say there are 3 people that you wanted to transfer 17,000 to, you can only transfer to one, is that correct? Or could you transfer 17,000 to each?
You could transfer 17,000 to each, up to 17, yes. And that number does change on an annual basis, so it doesn't just stay right there.
The qualified charitable distribution cap of 100,000, is that per couple, per individual? The 100,000
For each individual,
for each individual?
yes.
Okay. And then could you elaborate a little bit on that last proposed legislation?
I would love to. My knowledge on that is fairly limited. News of that came out, gosh, I think the beginning of March, and then there were some new reports that it was moving forward. However, I don't know if anyone else from our team if they have any additional information on it, but I don't have anything besides just the proposed language that they have. But I do know that there are about 10 to 12 senators, I believe, that are proposing it. And it's a bipartisan bill.
So what exactly does it mean, a non-itemized charitable deduction? In other words, I wouldn't have to carry it, I wouldn't have to claim that in my standard deduction or itemized deductions? What?
So this allows you to itemize because right now, the ability to itemize is very limited. So this would extend that ability. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
It means that you can get a deduction whether you itemize or not. So you can take a deduction for charitable gifts even if you take the standard deduction.
Alrighty, well, it looks like we've answered those questions. So we're going to move on now to talk specifically about effective gift strategies. And so I just want to point out that you're going to continue to see a lot of maroon and gold in our slides because, of course, we're representing the University of Minnesota Foundation. But we also acknowledge that many of our donors have many charitable interests. And most of what I'll share about gift strategies applies to all charities, but some have different policies, for example, minimum funding amounts. And so we recommend checking with each of the charities you support to ensure that you understand any differences from what I'll be sharing today. So this is an especially timely topic We're hearing from our donors that in times of economic uncertainty, like many are experiencing today with issues like inflation and market volatility, flexible gift strategies provide solutions to ensure goals will be achieved, both now and in the future. Bruce Dabosky advises individuals, families, and foundations on charitable giving strategies. He notes, for donors to engage in meaningful giving, it is important for them to understand their reason for doing so. He identifies a number of reasons why donors may engage in charitable giving, and these include working with family members to achieve common goals, connecting with others in the community, or to create a legacy. He notes that avoiding taxes sometimes motivates people to give more, but meaningful giving is often about reasons more relevant to the donor's lives, and that's usually driven by something the donor feels passionate about, where they want to make an impact. Studies also show that discussing charitable goals with family members fosters greater giving. As an example, we know of some donors who have a holiday tradition of sharing which organizations they give to and why, which strengthens that family's bonds with one another and their community. So planned gifts are often defined as tools to help donors accomplish their goals, both during life and as part of an estate plan. Planned gifts in an estate plan allow donors to continue supporting causes they supported during life, often at a level not possible during lifetime. I like a description that one of our donors who was quoted some years ago in the Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine issue about charitable giving. They said, "A planned gift in your estate is the final gift you make. It's a way to show your friends, family, and community what was important to you and what you supported while you were alive, as well as a way to help others." So we think it's helpful to provide a framework for giving using 3 buckets or categories. First are gifts in your estate plan, such as a will or revocable trust, or by beneficiary designation and other direct transfers, like Sonia described earlier. The second bucket is for gifts that provide income, including charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trusts. And the third are current use gifts, where donors can enjoy seeing the impact of their gift during lifetime. And while we don't have time to discuss in detail all of these gift options, we will share examples from each of the gift categories. We've included information about these gift options in your folder, and there's more information on our website, which is listed at the bottom of the slide. Of course, we're happy to discuss this information with you and send specific information upon request. So the first category we'll talk about are the estate gifts, which is also the most common planned gift and likely very familiar to you. These include gifts from a will or revocable trust, proceeds from retirement accounts or life insurance, payable on death or investment accounts, and real estate from a transfer on death deed. One of the main features of an estate gift is flexibility. You can change your gift if and when life's circumstances change. And estate gifts can be divided among family and charities. While these gifts are flexible, that doesn't make the decision-making process necessarily easier. Donors regularly ask us, how do I decide how much of my estate to give to charity? And this is a question, of course, that we can't answer for you. However, we do encourage you to focus on what you want to accomplish with your gift that would be meaningful to you, and whether that's to charity or to family members. If one reason you give is to share your values, the charitable portion doesn't have to be a large percentage, but simply a meaningful amount to show the importance of that purpose in your life. For example, one family we work with have 4 children, and they added a 5th share for charity. My own parents have this kind of plan: 3 shares to myself and my 2 siblings, and a 4th share to 3 organizations that they're passionate about supporting. Many donors have shared that they have charitable goals, but are concerned about providing for loved ones in the event their estate drops in value, or whether healthcare costs will use up a greater share for what they have saved for that purpose. To address these concerns, you can make a charitable gift in your will or trust contingent on loved ones receiving a specific dollar amount first, and if the estate value isn't sufficient, then the charity would receive a reduced amount or even no gift. So let's hear from a donor couple about how they have directed their support to the U.
We're alumni. I taught at the U for 20 years. We don't have any children, so we have to do something with our leftover money, assuming there is some.
We have 4 areas that we support. One is the ARB, one is the Raptor Center, and the marching band, and then our scholarship, chemical engineering scholarship.
Since a number of the students in our department, chemical engineering department, are also in the band, we said if possible, we would like to have the scholarship go to a Chem E student that's in the band. And we've been lucky to be able to do that most of the time. So Tejas has been our guy, he plays trombone. Everybody seems to be willing to kind of make things the way we would want it and suggest ways that we can structure things to do the things that we want to do.
All top-notch people, friendly, easy to work with, make a personal commitment to, to get to know you, and it's really been pleasant.
It's easy because most of my retirement stuff's in an IRA, so we just make the foundation a contingent beneficiary on that, and it goes automatically. The other pieces, we have a will for our rest of our estate, the junk that we have and everything that somebody will get rid of.
Don't you just love that? I just think that's fantastic. So that donor shared that he's designated the U as a contingent beneficiary, and by that he means he's named his spouse as the primary beneficiary, which is very common. And then, of course, the U will receive the gift after both spouses have passed away. So next I want to discuss a common and tax-efficient way that many donors use to make charitable estate gifts. In this example, the couple chose to give tax-deferred retirement accounts to charity. And this is why that is becoming an increasingly common strategy. Tax-deferred retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and 403bs are accounts where income tax is not paid when you transfer dollars to that account. If a gift from a tax-deferred account is left to family or friends, they will have to pay the income tax, and possibly estate tax will also be due. Instead, these are directed to charity. The full amount passes without income or estate tax. And this is why tax-deferred accounts are often the best asset for a gift to charity. We're often asked about strategies for younger donors to benefit charity, and because so many people start retirement accounts early in their working years, this is a common and impactful gift option for all ages to consider. Here's another example where using retirement assets help the donor accomplish their goals. So Tom has a $500,000 in IRA assets and $500,000 in other assets, and would like to give equally to his daughter and to the university. As you can see, if he divides each asset equally, then Beth will have to pay almost $80,000 in income tax on the retirement assets. But if he gives the IRA to charity and the other assets to Beth, the full value of the retirement assets will pass to his charitable beneficiaries. Taxes on the retirement assets could be even more if Beth is in a higher tax bracket or if Tom's estate is subject to estate tax. We often use illustrations similar to these to help donors see the benefit of structuring their charitable estate gifts in this manner, especially if they have individual family members or friends they wish to direct gifts to. So this is a recent example of a couple, Ken and Nancy, who are in their 60s and who want to provide gifts for their niece and nephew and also want to support the U and their church. They have retirement accounts, real estate, and other banking and investment accounts, and like most people, are not certain what their needs may be in the future. They wonder if they'll have enough for retirement and future health care expenses. But as Nancy said, if something happens to us tomorrow, I want what we have to go to people and places that we care about in a way that reflects our values. So Ken and Nancy have in mind amounts they'd like to give to their niece and nephew, and they provided those gifts through gifts in their wills. The 2 charities they want to support will receive the retirement accounts, which will avoid all tax on those accounts. They plan to reassess this every few years to check whether the gift values still reflect their goals and to see if they need to make any changes. They also have indicated that they might wish to see the impact of their gift to the university during their lifetimes by making current gifts. But for now, this plan gives them the most flexibility. This is a common way many donors begin to fulfill their charitable interest and impact goals. especially in uncertain economic times or when donors have concerns about unexpected future events. So we're often asked for suggested language to leave an estate gift or to designate the you as a beneficiary. We've included that information in these slides, and this language is also included in your folders in the Willer Trust and Retirement Asset Fact Sheets. And the slide also includes a link to our website, which also has that language. Lots of ways to get it. For those of you who support other charitable organizations, and we know many of you do, this is information that we, of course, encourage you to request from other organizations that you support so that you can have the correct information for those organizations as well. For any gift that is in your estate plans, we recommend sharing information about those gifts with charities that you're supporting. The most important reason to share how you'd like is to share how you'd like that gift to be used. This is especially important with gifts directed in retirement plans because companies often don't provide benefiting charities with designation information. We always ask, but we have many examples where the companies had nothing on record and the donors had not shared that information with us. So the university uses a one-page form called the estate gift form, which you see here, and that allows donors to share information about their gift without making a binding commitment. We specify on the estate gift form that the donor is free to change or revoke this gift at any time, and that the information you provide will remain confidential in our records. Sharing information also provides an opportunity for greater engagement with the university, like invitations to events and regular communication. It also gives us the opportunity to thank and recognize donors as members of our Heritage Society. We have heard from many donors how much they appreciate that they can control the level of contact and recognition they receive as members of our Heritage Society. As an example, if you prefer not to be contacted after your gift or to only receive things like newsletters, we can arrange that for you. And donors can also remain anonymous if that is preferred. This form is available in your folders and on our website, or we'd be happy to send it to you. So I'm going to pause for a moment right now to see if there are any questions about what I've shared so far.
You commented on gifts, current gifts.
Yep.
And I think the theme to use there is, in a sense, giving it back. So many of us benefit from what the university has done for us in our careers, that the strongest motivation I find is to compensate and make it possible for somebody else. But otherwise, I've been using the technique of making current gifts from one of my IRAs. But I don't know whether I don't know how it comes from an investment bank, and they send their checks directly to the beneficiaries. And I presume they identify me as the source of the funds, but I don't consistently receive an acknowledgement from my beneficiary recipients.
That is such an awesome question, which is one of the reasons that I referred to, and I'm going to be specifically addressing that issue. But so one of the like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes checks come to us as at the foundation, or I'm sure to other charities, where the donor's name is not listed on the check. And so what we often highly recommend people to do is to notify the charity ahead of time that you are directing that gift. And then we, of course, can then make sure that we can match your check with your name, your interest, and direct it in the right way, and then provide you with the right kind of a receipt. And we oftentimes have those conversations with donors. So thanks for bringing that up, and thank you for your testimonial for why your support is so important. Any question?
Is that estate gift form something new? I don't recall ever having signed one of those.
It is not a new form for us. It is a form that we've had in a variety of different formats for many years. I'm sure probably for the last 40 years since we've had a gift planning program here at the university. We'd be happy to share that with you, of course, and have a more conversation with you if you'd like to share that, your gift information with us. Yeah, thanks. All right. Doesn't appear there's any other questions, so we'll move on. All right, so next I'm going to be sharing information about current use gifts, which are often the most tax advantaged. In addition to cash and marketable securities, our foundation works with donors who want to give real estate and other non-cash gifts. Perhaps the most important feature of a current gift is that donors can experience the impact of their gift during their lifetime. Many donors enjoy meeting students or hearing about the research they've supported or visiting the building they've helped to build or renovate. More than one donor has thanked us for encouraging them to begin giving during their lifetime because they so enjoy seeing the impact of their giving. So I'm going to start by describing a very tax-advantaged way to make a current gift using an IRA, like the gentleman over here just spoke about. So I know that not everyone here in the room has reached age 70 and a half, but for those of you who have, this has become an increasingly important way to make charitable gifts and avoid income tax. This gift option allows individuals who are 70 and a half or older to donate up to $100,000 each year directly to qualified charities from their IRA without having to include the amount of the distribution as income. This also satisfies the required minimum distribution from the IRA without having to pay any income tax. As Sonia explained earlier, even though the required minimum distribution age increased to age 73 this year and will gradually increase to age 75, the IRA qualified charitable distribution is still available to those who are age 70 and a half. Most plan administrators have a form that you can use to request the charitable distribution. We also have sample letters that we can provide to request that transfer. So it's important to inform the charity when you are directing an IRA qualified charitable distribution because we regularly receive checks from IRA administrators without having donor information, as we discussed earlier. It's very helpful if we know in advance so that we have information we need to record your gift and your designation, of course, and to receipt that gift. So I'd like to share an example of how these donors have used the IRA QCD to support the U. They each came to the University of Minnesota to earn master's degrees, his in civil engineering and hers in mathematics. Their 3 children also hold degrees from the U of M, and their granddaughter is currently in dental school, so they've got an amazing family heritage with the university. When Jack's spouse, Ife, passed away, Jack decided to set up 2 scholarships, one in civil engineering and one in mathematics, funded with annual IRA qualified charitable distributions. Jack told us that he used this gift strategy because it offers tax advantages, but most importantly, he shared how rewarding it was to hear from his first scholarship recipient, and he's enjoyed hearing about his scholarship recipients every year after that since those scholarships were established. And like many donors, they've also included gifts to the university in their will to fund scholarships in perpetuity. So that gift that Jack made of current and future estate support is sometimes referred to as a blended gift strategy, and there are many ways to fund blended gifts. And I'd like to share another example of a blended gift, this time designated the U as beneficiary of retirement assets. So donors Greg and Julie are grateful for the education they received at the U and decided to support students with a 5-year pledge of $5,000 each year. They're directing this gift to a new fund that will support students who they'll have the opportunity to meet in coming years. They also designated the U as the beneficiary of retirement assets so that their fund will continue to provide support after they're gone. And by using retirement assets, they'll avoid the tax that would otherwise be due if they gave the retirement assets to family. It's a great strategy for donors of all ages. So our next video tells the story of a family with a long history of giving to the U as well, which includes using a blended gift approach. Let's take a look.
I really enjoyed watching the women play basketball. In 2009, I said to my daughter, Lisa, if there's any money left over when I die, would you establish a scholarship for a women basketball player? And she said,
I said, don't wait until you die. Do it now. Do it while you can enjoy the opportunity, while you can watch your student, while you can cheer on the team. This is something that you can really take advantage of and feel good about. Do it now.
So I did, because I'm 70 and a half plus. I am able to make this contribution to my IRA, and it's a qualified charitable contribution. And it's very easy.
My journey with the university has been both through my parents, so my father being a professor at the university, my mother having a scholarship, but I also started working at the university in 2012. So I'm the curator of the Jean Nicholas Treader Collection and GLBT Studies, a GLBT archive at the University of Minnesota Libraries. One of the things that I liked about setting up an estate gift is that I was able to specify exactly how I wanted the funds to be used. So I could say, I want this funding to go towards paying students to work in the archive, because I know that helps the archive, and I know it's transformational and life-changing for the students who get to be there. So one of the funds my parents set up many years ago was a fund in honor of my grandparents, my father's parents, at the Immigration History Research Center. So we've got the fund for my grandparents, we have the fund for my father, we have the scholarship for my mother, and then we have the funds that my wife and I are setting up in our wills. So it's a long, we have a long lineage.
Yeah.
We're so fortunate to have so many family stories like that. Isn't that just wonderful? So another effective option for making a gift to charity is using assets that have grown in value. That's things like stock, real estate, or other non-cash gifts. If sold by the owner, it will not only result in capital gains tax, but can increase other negative tax consequences, including pushing into a higher tax bracket, increased tax on Social Security, and the net investment income tax. Let me share another example. So a donor I work with recently gave property that he had in Minnesota that he purchased in 1957 for about $3,000. It had grown in value to over $350,000, and he was no longer using the land, and he did not need the proceeds from any sale. So the donor gave the land directly to the foundation and has directed the proceeds from the sale among the various programs he and his wife support. And by giving a highly appreciated asset like real estate to charity, he avoided capital gains tax that he would have incurred on the sale, and that he and his wife are really enjoying seeing the impact that his gift will have on the many programs they support at the U. So next we're going to discuss life income gifts, which increase income for the donor or others the donor chooses and support the mission of the charitable organization. So with a charitable gift annuity, a donor makes a gift to charity in exchange for fixed annual payments for 1 or 2 lives, with the remainder to benefit the charity. I'm going to share a couple of the stories, of course, that will help illustrate this effective giving strategy. Kiara had a goal of creating an endowed fund named in honor of her husband, Stephen, who received his graduate degree from the U and was always very grateful for the opportunities his education provided him. Many donors find that endowment funds are a great way to honor loved ones. Kiara had CDs that were coming due, and while she liked the fixed income, she was disappointed in the rate she was receiving. So Kiara decided to create a charitable gift annuity that will make payments to her for her life. The rate for a charitable gift annuity is determined by the annuitant's age, and because Kiara is 79, her rate at the time of the gift is 7.4%. She'll receive $3,700 a year for the rest of her life, most of it tax-free through her life expectancy. She can take a charitable income tax deduction of nearly $25,000 in the year she makes the gift. And she has directed the remaining amount to an endowment fund in Stephen's name. This grid shows the current rates for a charitable gift annuity that pays one person. In the past year, these rates have increased twice, making this an even more attractive gift option. If you're interested in knowing your rate for your age, please let us know, and we can use software to run an illustration for you. These rates are set by the American Council on Gift Annuities, which UMF follows, along with most organizations that offer charitable gift annuities. The assumption is that 50% of the initial funding value will remain at the end of the contract. I'm happy to say, with the Foundation's strong investment performance, we receive on average almost 80% of the initial funding value, and oftentimes even higher. For example, a donor couple I work with, they have 13 charitable gift annuities, and the average current market value for their gift annuities is currently 95% of their initial funding value, which is wonderful. So gift annuity rates are one of those things that gets better with age. You can also increase the rate by deferring the annuity payments for at least 1 year, and I'll give you an example of how these work. So this is a couple, Paul and Sue, who told us they wanted to support scholarships with their gift. They were interested in a gift that would provide an income tax deduction because they had significant income that year from the sale of a business. They were also interested in increasing their retirement income, but they don't plan to retire for at least another 10 years. We created a deferred gift annuity that will begin making payments in 10 years. And by deferring income, the rate will increase from 4.3% with an immediate payment gift annuity to a higher rate of 7.5% with the deferred. They decided to use stock that had grown in value since they purchased it many years ago. And using appreciated stock, they will avoid a portion of the capital gains tax that would have been due if they sold the stock, and the rest of the gain is deferred over their life expectancies. And a portion of each payment is tax-free, also over their life expectancies. Donors have the option to choose a flexible deferred charitable gift annuity, which allows them to change the date for their payments to fit future circumstances. So let's watch another video of a donor who has used this gift option as part of their charitable planning.
My wife retired and I was getting ready to retire. We moved to a condo on the west bank of the university, and we thought, well, it's time to relook at where we're giving our money to. And so we both came to an agreement that the University of Minnesota is going to be here forever and could use our money. Plus, it had many places we could give the money to that would fit us both historically and philosophically. And so we knew that was good. Plus, you also had the charitable gift annuity plan, which we liked. When we made the gift, you said we have a choice. You can be anonymous or you can attach your names to it. And the initial thought was that, well, maybe we should be anonymous, that's the way we kind of lived our life. But we chose to put our name on the gift, and we've met a lot of wonderful people and been to a lot of wonderful programs. We support an animal science scholarship on the St. Paul campus because that was my undergraduate degree, plus law school scholarships. Because I remember my days of waiting for the check to come from my loan. And I was on the Minnesota Law Review, and I quit after the first week because I knew that I had to have some money in my billfold. And so it just became, I want to help some other both of my wife and I wanted to help some other young people not have those problems. It's a great place to give money, and they know how to handle it, and they're thankful for that you give it to them.
All right, so this slide summarizes how a charitable gift annuity works. You'll note that in 2023, donors can now use an IRA qualified charitable distribution to fund a charitable gift annuity. There's very special rules that apply to this gift option, which of course we'll be happy to discuss with those people who qualify and who might be interested. Many donors also use charitable gift annuities to provide income for family or other loved ones. And if interested, we of course are happy to discuss these gift options with you as well. So next we'll talk about a charitable remainder trust, and that's another life income gift option that allows donors to increase income for themselves or others and support charitable organizations they care about. A charitable remainder trust is a trust that makes payments to one or more beneficiaries for life or a term of years, with the remainder distributed to one or more charities. Here's an example. Bob and Jill are in their 70s, and they've created an endowed fund that supports faculty in environmental studies already at the U. A number of years back, they realized they really weren't using their cabin any longer, and they wanted to diversify their holdings and generate more income. They had owned the property for a very long time, so their taxes would increase significantly if they sold the land due to increase in value and capital gains tax. So they made a gift of the cabin to the trust, and the trust will sell the property, and the proceeds will be invested in a diversified portfolio. They'll receive an income tax deduction in the year of the gift, and they'll receive a payment equal to 5% of the value of the trust each year. The payments are going to fluctuate annually based on the yearly valuation of the investments in the trust. And because markets generally go up over time, this can be a way to hedge against inflation for many donors, which makes this a more attractive option for younger donors. The remainder is then directed to the charity and for their faculty support fund. So this is an excellent gift option using appreciated property, including other non-cash assets like farmland and highly appreciated stock. Again, new this year, a donor can also make a gift of an IRA qualified charitable distribution to fund a charitable remainder trust. And like the IRA QCD funded charitable gift annuity, there's very special rules that apply to this. And so for those who might be interested, we'd be very happy to discuss that option with you separately. So next I'm going to talk about another popular giving tool called a donor advised fund. The U receives many grants each year from donor advised funds, and donors often ask us about how they work. And here's how. A donor makes a gift to a sponsoring charity. These are often a community foundation or a charitable fund set up by a financial institution like Fidelity or Schwab. This fund is owned by the sponsoring charity, but the donor or those they designate can recommend grants to charities they'd like to support. One of the main reasons some donors like these is convenience. You can make one annual gift to the donor advised fund with one receipt, and then direct grants from the fund to support many charities when you choose to do so. The donor receives a charitable deduction in the year of the gift to the donor advised fund. And so for those who've not decided the charitable purposes they want to support, this allows them or someone they designate to make charitable decisions at a later date. In recent years, with the increased standard deduction amount and fewer people using itemized deductions, some donors use donor advised funds to consolidate several years of giving into 1 year, so they can itemize deductions in the year they make the gift to the donor advised fund. This is called a bunching strategy. There is a cost for using a donor advised fund, so we commonly see donors use the convenience of a donor advised fund for smaller gifts and direct larger gifts directly to charities they know they want to support for a particular charitable impact, as a way to avoid that added layer of costs for larger gifts. In addition to annual grant recommendations, the donor can recommend the charities they choose to receive the remaining assets when the donor advised fund ends. And these are gift discussions we regularly explore with donors who have a donor advised fund. So I've covered lots of topics there, so I'm going to pause now to see how many questions folks have.
If the benefactor doesn't identify a charity when they set up a DAF, what happens to those funds?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if it's, in particular, I'm going to talk about those donor advised funds that are held with the financial institutions like Fidelity and Schwab. If the donor does not name a beneficiary, then those funds go to a charitable fund that that financial institution gets to then direct the support to, so it's really important if you have one of those funds to name a beneficiary. Otherwise, you just relinquish that control back to the financial institution. And if you're with a donor advised fund that is held generally with a community foundation, they're pretty good about making sure that those forms are filled out. But it's the same kind of issue there as well. So if you're considering one or if you have one, just make sure you have those beneficiary designations really filled out and completed. Good question. Any other questions folks have? I know I covered a lot of different topics.
You described a couple of charitable remainder trusts. I think there were two, if I followed right. And then you referred to, if you qualify, is there a minimum dollar amount?
This is a really good question. So the question was, he was talking about, we have talked about two different life income gifts. One is a charitable gift annuity, and he was asking about minimum funding amounts for the gift annuity as well as a charitable remainder trust. And for the University of Minnesota Foundation, our minimum funding amount for a gift annuity is $10,000. But for a charitable remainder trust, our minimum funding amount is $100,000. And so, like I mentioned earlier, if there are other organizations that you're interested in, they might have different minimums. And we also have minimum funding ages as well. And all that information is available in the folder that you have. And if you're interested in more details about that, we could certainly answer those questions separately as well. That's a great question. Thanks. All right. Not seeing any others, I will push on. All right, so we've made our way through a really high-level overview of the various ways to give. And next, I'm just going to provide a brief summary to 5 points to summarize the benefit for each of these main categories. 1, estate gifts offer the donor a lot of flexibility. 2, charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trusts provide income for the donor or others. 3, for estate gifts and life income gifts, the charity's use of the gift is deferred. And 4, current gifts allow donors the enjoyment of seeing their gift at work and typically provide the greatest tax benefits. And 5, gifts do not have to be an either-or, as many donors use blended gift strategies, such as the ones we shared earlier, in order to maximize the impact of their charitable giving plans. So in some of the examples we've shared today, the donors talked about the various funds they support in different parts of the university. In our work, we're often asked about the fund options available to direct support to the U. At any gift, whether current or future, can be directed to an existing fund to support a college or program, or donors can create a new fund with a purpose that fits their specific goals. The fund can be named after the donor or someone they wish to honor. The gift could be directed to what we call a demand fund, where the full amount can be put to work immediately. This is typically the type of fund for building projects or certain research funds. Gifts can also be directed to endowed funds, which provide permanent support, meaning that only a portion of the fund is spent each year. UMF's current spending policy is 4.5% on a trailing 5-year average. This provides predictable and stable support to the U well into the future. Our foundation manages over 6,900 endowments, and our current value of our endowment exceeds $3 billion. This slide shows the current minimum amounts to set up an endowment at the U, but each college has or program is a little different, so as noted on the slide, it's always best to check with us in advance. Like one of the examples I shared earlier, the minimum can be achieved with a 5-year pledge. So we're regularly asked to share what options for support there are at the U, and of course that's way too broad of a topic for the short time we have remaining. In a minute, I'm going to summarize the current priority areas, and I'm really confident that everyone can find meaningful options to direct their support at the U. So you might recall that the Foundation's most recent U-wide campaign, called Driven, raised over $4.4 billion in support. These gifts are making an impact and a difference across all U of M campuses, colleges, and programs where the donors designated their support. Over $1 billion of that campaign is from planned gifts, including many gifts that will be received in the future. This created a valuable pipeline of support for the university. So many of the initiatives supported in the Driven campaign are ongoing and including a few of the opportunities I'm going to highlight this evening. The first of these system-wide priorities is called Learners to Leaders, which is focused on student support. The goals there include eliminating financial barriers to make quality education more accessible, fostering equity and inclusion with systemic change and opportunities, and supporting the whole student by strengthening support services and resources. The second system-wide priority is called Innovators and Educators, with a focus on faculty. This priority recognizes the U faculty's key role in innovation, diversity of ideas and expertise, and the creation of a dynamic learning environment for students. And the third priority is in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As members of the University of Minnesota community, we share a commitment to fostering a welcoming community that values belonging, equity, diversity and dignity in people and ideas. Philanthropy drives social change and opens doors, and gifts in support of this priority make the university a place of opportunity for everyone. Additionally, each campus and college has their own priorities. We'd be happy to connect you with one of our colleagues at a campus or college if you'd like to learn more about specific opportunities that would be meaningful to you. Of course, you'll also find information in your folders about these priority areas. So as we close, in summary, estate and gift planning at its best can be a reflective process to provide for family members and organizations that have been important to you. Like so many things, we often make giving decisions out of habit or in response to others' requests. We suggest that the most satisfying gifts would be those you make after considering what's important to you, often after discussion with family or friends and other trusted advisors. As Aristotle notes, this is not necessarily easy. I'll end the presentation with 2 additional quotes. First is from a poem that we like that reminds us to consider what we plan to do with our one wild and precious life. The second puts a little different twist on that. You may know that Earl Bakken was a founder of Medtronic and a 1948 U of M graduate. After he retired, he spent over 20 years giving his ideas, time, and resources to a number of causes, including the university. He was known for asking the question, "What are you doing with your extra life?" So we are very happy to take additional questions. But first, I want to encourage you to provide feedback using this lovely evaluation form that is also in your folders. We take very seriously the feedback we receive and try to incorporate that feedback into our presentations moving forward. So I thank you in advance for doing that. I really would appreciate that. And so lastly, I'm going to introduce members of the gift planning team who are here with me this evening as well, and you see their pictures up here. And you've already met Sonia, who's part of our finance team and gift planning, and then Lane Cook in front here too. All right, and then going from the side here, Jennifer White, Lynn Praska, Helene Benitez, who I didn't see behind there, and then Ben Webster, and Jane Godfrey. Right. So we will all be available to answer questions if you have any one-on-one questions you'd like to ask. But at the moment, I would be happy to take any additional questions that folks have. And I'll ask Sonia to come up just in case folks have other questions that she might be able to answer as well. So feel free to share questions, or we'd be happy to talk with you after, because we can stick around for a while as well. And really appreciate everybody coming this evening, but open to questions. Okay, go ahead.
My name's Wes. First of all, thank you for putting on this event. I appreciate this.
You're welcome.
Secondly, I appreciate the slide you had about charitable gifts with purpose, and specifically gifting to partners with shared values. Some of my personal values are environmental sustainability, social justice, animal rights, and I'm curious if you can elaborate on the university's vision for something specific like environmental sustainability, specifically the elimination of single-use plastic. Because I go to a lot of university events, and I find there's like water bottles and just plastic all around me, and I'm just curious if you could maybe elaborate on that.
I think that is an awesome question. I truly wish that I could elaborate on that question, but what I can say is that I am confident we have many people that we can connect you to who could talk with you about all those areas of interest and can explain those and listen to your questions and listen to your passion and can align what we're doing at the university that would be aligned with your goals, because I'm confident we are doing work in all the areas and we're doing it well and in a leadership way, possibly globally even, but unfortunately, that's not an area of expertise that I'm going to be able to elaborate on. But we will follow up with you so we can make sure we get you those answers. Okay. Any other questions that folks want to ask this evening? Well, if not, it's still light outside, so people can actually make their way home before it gets dark. And again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to following up with each of you and to see if there's any questions you have of us, and happy to connect you more with other options that might be meaningful to you in the future. So really appreciate you coming. Take care.